Hi, folks. Got an absolutely fantastic guest here. I've got Clive Edwards. This is a man who stands up for himself. And one of the things I enjoy having these chats are people who, I don't know, you sort of mavericks. They don't go with what they're told to do. Is that right, Clive?
That would be a fair assessment, Liam. Yeah, that would be a fair assessment. I've certainly stood up to local government for sure.
Yeah, which is what we're going to talk about. Lots of different things today, because I know Clive's got other subjects he wants to talk about as well. For my viewers at the moment, they're pissed off with things like council tax. They're fed up with government interfering in their lives and planning permission and all of that. And you are a man who has stood up for yourself against the council and everything, especially with the planning permissions. That was kind of where it sort of started for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. I stood up against the local council over a planning matter. It was over putting up some wooden fences down on a bit of land I got because I was a self-employed carpenter, ran my own little building firm, and then the councils tried to stop me from putting up a wooden fence, and then it ultimately ended up with police riot vans turning up, dog units, you name it. I mean, I've been through a bit of the mill with it, but it taught me a lot about how the system of law and governance works.
So how did it kind of start? So you're an ordinary, but I understand like you're a football fan. Were you sort of looking after a team as well, and you were what was your job?
Well, yeah, I'm a carpenter by trade, and I ran my own construction company.
Yes.
And this is pre 2007, so I ran a local football team as well. I played football, managed the team for 10 years, pretty successful at a local level. We're not talking Premier League standards here, but yeah, really good times. And 2007, the recession came. I'm sure a lot of your viewers will can relate to that, and things took a turn for the worse economically. And for me personally, when the council said that the builder's yard I was running on a bit of field I've got, I couldn't use it no more, so it was going to end my business. So I had nowhere to run. I had nowhere to run. I had to.
But what
It was
was
either
your
sink or swim.
reaction? What was your reaction to that? So suddenly, you've been doing this. You weren't aware that you had to go to the council or anything, and then suddenly, what? Somebody turned up and said you can't do that.
Yeah. So yeah, I was shocked really because I was only putting up some B&Q wooden fences to shield in the winter when the hedges were bare to stop
Right.
people looking through the hedges to nick me trailers and things like this.
Right.
So I was just putting up some fencing to protect me tools and equipment, and then they literally in the afternoon they come down with a clipboard and said, "You got to stop. You can't do that."
But what
But
what was your initial reaction when somebody you've never seen, you don't know who they are, just turns up and decides to get involved in your life?
yeah, I was it was a bit of shock, and I was also kind of like, just leave me alone, let me get on with my, leave me like I had no interactions with these people. It's just like leave me alone, let me get on with my business. My life, my little bubble was just fine without you. Do you know what I mean? Uh,
And
yeah.
also, sorry to interrupt, but at that time, I mean, it was difficult because you were going to go into the crash at that time and difficult to do your business. So then suddenly you've got government or council or whatever you want to call it interfering.
It is the government. When you said about council tax in parking, if you park in a council's car park, they're going to issue a CCJ against you and threaten to take you to court if you don't pay your council tax. So it is government, it is local government. The council are the ones that are going to cause you the most trouble and your audience in your life. And
Mm,
I had it was sink or swim time for me. My business was going down the pan. I had nowhere to run. So it's like
mm.
if I don't face these guys and if I don't learn to understand how this system works, like I'm done for.
So how did you progress? I mean, what do you suddenly do? Do you go to the internet? You go to the library? What do you do?
Well, so I'll just tell your audience, it started over an argument over a wooden fence going up to protect my equipment, and it ended up with me building a farm in Somerset with no planning permission. Right, so it
Hey,
got serious. Yeah, well, I went nuclear. Like
yes.
I am that type of guy. Like if you bring it to me, then we'll raise it a few levels and see how we get on. But so yeah, it started with me. I was just like scratching my head. It's like, right, so I'm in a lot of trouble here. My business is going to go in the pan. Like everything hung on me keeping this yard. So yeah, I went to the internet. I started looking at the council's policies on enforcement, and then I ultimately come across a document called a constitution. Like
Right.
every council has got a constitution, and that was where the key was at.
But what's happening at that particular time, you're being pressured though at the time that you're trying to get the knowledge to fight back. So what
Yeah.
was the council doing at that particular point?
It was started in the start. It was quite friendly. It was, it's like Clive, you got to stop what you're doing. And I didn't have a clue about the law. Like I was just average Joe. Like football, work, that was my life. And now I have to start trying to understand, like, how can these guys get this authority over me? Like, what's happening here? How can some guy I've never met before in my life turns up and says, stop this? And it was about to threaten my existence.
Yes.
So
Did you
that's where I was
feel
at.
aggressive? Did you feel like, I mean, it must have, I mean, actually, all jokes aside, I mean, you must have been in turmoil in a way because, like you say, your
I was.
livelihood is threatened, and did you have dependents or people that you had to look after?
Yeah, I was engaged at the time. I was like in my mid-30s at the time. I'm 50 now, so I'm getting longer in the tooth. But so yeah, and my existence, literally, I was in a dark place. I was in a
Hmm.
dark. I had nowhere else to go. I was cornered. So
So
like,
what was the process? So what did you do? How did you start to fight back?
so I
Because I tell you
started.
why I'm asking, because there are
Yeah,
so many people out there who are so pissed with this sort of situation, and they could look to someone like you as a kind of almost like a heroic figure. I know you don't see yourself as that, who is going to take people on. And I think what people really need out there are sort of examples of people who actually take on situations and win.
that's exactly what you just said. There is exactly the reasons why I've come onto the internet in the last year and will
Right.
launch my website. I've done that to help ordinary, like I've always said, if I can't explain this down the pub to the scaffolders, bricklayers, and
Mhm.
labourers how this can be done, then
Right.
it's no good. And that's why I feel you mentioned to Calvin Robinson, your guest, about
Yes.
why the British people are so apathetic and why don't they stand up. And I
Yes.
feel it's because they're confused and they're lost and they don't really understand how they're governed. Like I was, that was the position I
Yes.
was in. And so I had to go and find out the nuts and bolts of it. And once I found out, like I'm a carpenter, like builders out there, they'll know if you've got a problem, you've got to overcome it.
Mhm.
Builders overcome problems every day of the week. You
So
know,
what's the starting point? So what you start looking on the net. So you get your first. Do you get your first letter? I'm really interested in the process, right? You get your
yeah.
first letter from the council. The council saying you can't do that. Are they threatening you then at that time?
No, not straight away. Although some councils, I mean, I've been all over the country since this happened to me, helping other farmers and different people, smallholders at court. Okay, so I started helping took on other people's battles. So it started very friendly with a guy with a clipboard and like, look, Clive, you can't do it. Then it was progressed to emails. Look, Clive,
Hmm.
you're still not complying.
Yeah.
Then it progressed to, we're going to issue you an enforcement notice, Clive. And an enforcement notice for a planning matter is an indictable offence, which means that can go to Crown Court, and
Hmm.
then that means it's an imprisonable offence if you don't pay the fine. And there are unlimited fines for planning issues.
So what were the people around you advising you, family? Were they saying, "Come on, let's just apply for the planning. Let's just conform. Let's just go ahead with this"?
Oh,
And
Leah,
they
yeah.
react when you went the other way.
Everybody told me it can't be done. Everyone, my family, like everyone. I sought legal advice. I sought advice from any talking head out there I could find. I
Mhm.
asked, and everyone said no. But I kind of felt it could be done.
What is it about you that is belligerent like that? Well, why are you like that, Clive?
That, I don't really know. I don't know. Perhaps other people around me would probably be best placed to answer that, Liam. But perhaps maybe it's my footballing background and things.
Yeah.
I'm a manager of a football team. I can strategize, overcome adversity. I don't know, but I've always believed that there's a way around anything, and I mean anything.
All right, so let's get to the nuts and bolts. So the process. So they start writing to you. How many times do they write to you? Do you reply to them? Because as I understand it, if you start replying, are you then engaging in the process and then accepting them as being the authority? Is that
That
sort of
is a really, really salient point. You've hit the
right?
nail on the head. That's where most of your audience and I made some of those mistakes initially because they will write to you in a manner like they will write to you as Mr. Galvin.
Yes.
Now, if I held a gun to your head, Liam, and said,
Yeah.
right, Liam, Mr. Galvin, go and
Yeah.
find me some documentation that proves to me your name is Mr. Galvin.
Yes.
Now you couldn't find me. I'm telling
No.
you now, there's no piece of paper you can point to that says your name is Mr. Galvin. These are
No.
legal matters. So that
Yeah.
means like every word is specific. It's there for a reason. Nothing is a mistake on legal paperwork. And this is
Yes.
a legal process they engage in against you.
Mhm.
So you are absolutely right. Like I'm in a position, my dad's called Clive Edwards as well. My granddad's Ronald Edwards. So there's potentially three Mr. Edwardses that have direct interest in this matter. So like my initial question, just from a naive point of view, was who's Mr. Edwards? Uh, and then I said, call me Clive, and that started to cause them problems. And I didn't know why at the time, but I do now. And it's because of what you said.
Yes.
When you start engaging with the government bodies as this Mr. title, it puts you under their jurisdiction. I'll tell you why. Because citizens have a rank in society. Like if you're a voting member of the established, if you vote for reform or whatever, whoever,
Yeah.
you are known as a citizen, and a citizen has a rank of commoner and a title of master, and that's what
Right.
Mister stands for. It's abbreviated of master.
So it's very important in these forms when they say, Mr., Ms., and all of that.
That
You
is
shouldn't.
why they do it. Yeah.
Really? So that has one. So you're writing back saying, call me the right name and all of that. So then where does it go from there?
It goes from there. So then they're writing to me on their headed paper, like the local council's headed paper, and they would have on the top of the headed paper like customer services. So I
Yes.
would say to them, right, you think I'm a customer? Where's this come? I'm not your customer. Of course, I'm in the building game. And I
Yes.
know you cannot get money out of a client who doesn't want to pay you unless there's a contract in place. Or, so they are actually a customer. So that's
Yes.
that's a legal position. Those your audience that are in the building game, or even when you put an invoice in, like you don't necessarily have to pay that unless there's a contract in place, an agreement.
So do you ask then for the contract that says that you've entered into the contract?
No, well, what my first initial contact with them was, why do you think I'm a customer? How did I become a customer? And if you believe I'm a customer, I don't want to be a customer anymore. Go away. And so that was one point. And the second point was, if you write to me in my actual name, Clive, I'll correspond with you. So initially and I sent that to this chief executive officer of the local council, and they never ever answered it.
All right. So if they actually do talk to you as Clive, they lose their power of authority.
They lose. Yes, you're right. They lose. It's put it like this, Liam. No one's ever going to turn up and take you to court as Liam.
Right.
They're going to need you to be Mr. Galvin.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah. So then what happens? So they don't answer those questions. Do they then
No.
start to pressure you a bit more? What's their
Well,
thing?
so then obviously I'm still doing a lot of research at this point now. I'm going on the internet. I'm buying law books. I've got nowhere to go. I either literally sink or swim. It's end of the road for me. So I either win this battle, or I lose it big time. So I started researching a lot, and I found out some of these tricks. I learned some of these legal tricks now about being called, like, giving you the title of Mister that we've just spoken about, because
Yes.
that puts you as a commoner, which is everyone who votes or everyone who's got a name on the electoral register is known at law as what is known as a commoner, like,
Right.
because you're a member of the House of Commons. That's why.
Yeah.
And a
Yeah.
commoner, this is relevant to your audience who are interested in protests and standing up.
Absolutely.
A commoner is a member of the third estate of the realm, which means you are not a second-class citizen, you're a third-class citizen.
So we're the lowest of the low.
Lowest of the low, and that's why protesting is no good.
Yeah.
And there are
So
ways and means.
I was going to ask you this. Is it, and I know we're diversifying a little bit, but is it pointless people going out protesting? Are they, because I often think, because I've been involved in loads of protests in terms of filming them and being involved in them. Are they pointless? Are the government not going to take any notice of it because we're all commoners?
They're worse than pointless, Liam, because you can only sign a petition. So it's a trap. It's worse than pointless. It's the worst possible thing you could do.
Right.
You can only sign a petition if you're on the electoral register. So I'll rephrase that. You can only legally sign a petition if you're on the electoral register. So therefore, by signing a petition and being legally able to sign one, you're confirming to the government that you're the lowest class of citizen.
Right.
So
they don't take any notice. They don't take
Not
notice.
in the slightest. They don't have any duty to take any notice. No.
I mean, the only way I would combat that is but say something like what was the tax years ago when the poll tax, where there were mass protests about that, and it may be because of the strength of public opinion, it sort of moved the government, or maybe they were going to do it anyway. I don't know. So, but like I say, I've been protesting for years, and I've never really seen any result from any of those protests.
No, exactly. And you made a really good point. I suppose en masse, if a country decides, all the citizens get out. Now, the government's, they say is the best way to ride a wild horse is whatever way it's going.
Yes. Yes.
So
So,
yeah.
so then what happened then? So what was the council's sort of attack on you? So you're mucking about, as it were, with the names and doing all of that, which is perfectly legal and totally right. What was their attack mode?
So that they just go, because they've got the weight of the state behind them, they just go for modus operandi number one, as in, let's go to court, let's issue an enforcement notice, let's see what he's made of.
Right.
Because most people will like to think they'll make a stand, okay, against government, and most
Yes.
people do, right up to the point is, do you want to go to court now? And then everyone goes, oh, no, not for me, thank you. But I stayed there. So 98% are out of the game now, and now they've issued an enforcement notice, and I stayed there and said, no, I'm still not doing it.
So
So
when they do an enforcement notice, well, what is it saying, that they're going to fine you, or they're going to come onto your land and take goods, or what are they trying to do to you?
all of those things.
Right.
And so with me, I was building. I'm starting to build at this point now. I'm building like a work office, let's say, call it workshops. I'm starting to build, putting the footings in for a house. And I wrote to the CEO and said, I'm going to build a house. Do you have
Mhm.
any objections? Because once I learned a few of these tricks that we've just spoken about, I
Yes.
went on the front foot. Then I wrote to him and said, I wrote to the CEO, the top guy, and said, I'm about to build a house. Do you have any objections? And he never replied. So you're right. They go. In my case, they issued 9 enforcement notices.
Okay.
So one for kind of each area that they wanted to clamp down on me doing, and each one's an unlimited fine and a prisonable offence if you don't pay it.
So what were you thinking at this point? Because you could have been banged up in the end and taken away. Did you
Yeah,
have, wife, girlfriends, or people around you say, "All right,
yeah.
you've done your bit, Clive. Time
I
to back off."
my wife. I was probably I got married in my late 30s, so I had a wife then, and my daughter was on the way. So yeah, I
Yeah.
wasn't just a renegade guy. Like, I had a family to think about, and
Yeah.
we moved onto that piece of land. So that I upped the stakes in that regard. So I
You
moved
see, because
onto the land.
that's really, sorry to keep interrupting, because I'm fascinated by it. But that's really brave, because in actual fact, you could have just maybe altered course, but you actually stood your ground, and you've got your family, which is a pressure behind you. It's a big pressure,
Big
because
pressure. Big
sometimes
pressure.
if you're on your own, I often think this. If I'm going to make a stand, I think if I was on my own, I would make a bigger stand, because if I go down, well, there you go. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But when you've got family with you, they've got to be staunch behind you, haven't they?
Yeah, that is a put. That is in some respects, they're your Achilles heel, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
Like you, I don't mind taking the flak on my own. We can
Yeah.
survive one way or another.
Yes.
But when you got a family, then in fact councils do often round, and they will go for the partners, because they know they'll write to your wife, because they know they can apply pressure in many ways, and that's one tactic they do use.
So did you
Yeah.
did you turn up at court for these 9 things, or was it a court date?
No, well, this is it. You see, the council didn't. In the end, I stood my ground, and I started to understand the law. Bearing in mind,
Mhm.
every day I'd be studying law now. I'm like a sponge for the law, reading up
Yes.
on law, reading their constitutions and policy documents. So I learned enough to be able to hold my own. And then
Yes.
the council then hired an expert in. They brought over an expert from Wales down to Somerset specifically for my case, to try and either resolve the matter, get me to court, or get me to concede.
Mhm.
So we ended up having a meeting with the council's expert they brought in.
And how did that go?
That went very well, because I thought, if this guy's an expert, I thought I'd ask him a few very simple questions.
Mhm.
So I wanted to gauge how much of an expert he was, and to see if he was a liar or not, whether I could rely on what he said to me. So I asked him, like, is it illegal not to have planning permission? And
Mhm.
he said, no, it's not illegal. That's why you can get retrospective planning permission, because
Right.
it's not illegal, but they will put serious pressure on you to get it. But
Mhm.
so he said, no, it's not illegal. And I said, have I got a right to a private life?
Mhm.
And he nodded and said, yes, you've got a right to a private life. And I'll get onto that in a minute, if you like, as to
Yeah.
why.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I can't do what I've done and be a citizen of the United Kingdom. Now,
Right.
if you like to get onto that, we can in a minute.
Yeah. No, I'd like to. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So
But
answer
you've
position.
taken yourself off the electoral roll, haven't you?
Yeah, I took the name off the electoral register, because that is
Yeah.
the evidence that of your consent to be governed.
Right.
That there, yeah. So it doesn't matter who you vote for. It doesn't. It
Yeah.
does. It's irrelevant. both wings belong to the same bird, and that bird is the crown.
Right. So are you advising people that it's pointless to vote? Because obviously people, the thought out there at the moment is, if you're anti-Labour, which I think there's quite a lot of people that are, they're
Yeah.
thinking, wow, God, if we can just get through the next 3 or 4 years, that we can then vote for reform, we can get rid of this government. Is that a waste of time?
It is if you want to do what I've done. I
Yes.
didn't want to be a commoner anymore. I didn't want to be a third-class citizen. And
Yes.
that's a position of no power. The position of power is to go back to being one of the people. I explain that at my website in more detail. If your audience are really interested in that specific point, because I know we haven't got long to get into the minutiae of it, but on that specific point, if they read an article on my website called "The Framework of Law and Governance," that will explain that what I'm talking about in a bit more detail.
Does that then make it very difficult to operate within society if you want to get your credit cards or your bank loan or this, that, and the other?
Not in the slightest. No, I've had no difficulty with that at all. And in fact, now I've now taken myself. I'm not a commoner anymore. I'm not a
Right.
citizen of the United Kingdom, because this is the other thing. The United Kingdom. If your audience go on Wikipedia right now and type in United Kingdom, what will come up is a picture of the Union Jack, and then
Yes.
it'll be a lion and a unicorn heraldry,
Mhm.
and then you can press play and it'll be a national anthem.
Right.
These three things are there to represent what the United Kingdom is, because they cannot show you what the United Kingdom is because it
Mhm.
doesn't exist in reality. It's a creation
Right.
of the law.
Yes.
So United Kingdom isn't a drawing of some heraldry like a lion and the unicorn that you see in courtrooms. That's not what the United Kingdom is. And it's not a flag. United Kingdom isn't a flag, and it's
Right.
not an anthem. But these are the things to conjure up an image in your mind of what the United Kingdom is. I often give the example of the former. Here you go, Liam. Here's 2 tickets. Take your family on holiday to Yugoslavia.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist anymore.
That is true. But can you, if you've withdrawn from the electoral register, does that mean that you have a passport? Could you travel to another country, or are you stuck forever in England or UK?
No, because that's a different jurisdiction. England's a different jurisdiction than the United Kingdom. So the
Right.
passport is a British passport. And
Yes.
Britain, if you again the same by the same means, if your audience went onto Wikipedia and put Britain in, you will
Yeah.
see the White Cliffs of Dover. You'll see some sea and you'll see the land,
Yes.
because Britain is the landmass. That's the real tangible reality. And the United Kingdom is a creation of the law, just like a limited company is, just
Right.
like Mr. Galvin is, importantly, as well.
So going back to your planning thing, one of the things I did an interview with the guy who runs the Sovereign project, and this and that, and I said to him, I've watched so many videos on thing where people have gone to court and said that they are not under the jurisdiction and this, that, and the other, and the court have just said, I'm sorry, we're not entertaining this, and this, that, and the other, and I couldn't quite get the answer whether he sort of won anything, but you are an example. Is the fact is that you've won because your buildings are still there, aren't they? And you're not getting any hassle at the moment. Is that right?
More than that, they didn't want to take me to court. How you win is by getting your argument so good and on point at the start that they don't even want to take you to court. They don't want to take you into the battle room. I would say that if you get to court, you're making the wrong arguments. That would be my position.
Right. So you are actually a winner. You have won this scenario because your buildings are still there. And how long has that gone on for?
Years. I mean, the council stopped. Their expert told me, "Look, Clive, we don't want to take you to court. It's not going to happen." That was like 5, 6, 7 years ago. So
And you've had
that's why
nothing since. Nothing.
no, nothing at all. No, because I've used the law. I don't want people out there to think I'm just reckless and it's just like 2 fingers up to the government. Although there is an element of putting you to, because if you have to be a bit bullheaded to stand against the government. And
Yes.
I don't mind that. That's not a problem. But I've used the law. And so the council's own constitution, they've got a document which is their Bible, which delineates between citizens of the state and people. Now, I had to look into this, and these are some of the things I found out. And so I relinquished my UK citizenship, one of the electorate, and I went back to the most authoritative position you could be. That's default. You're one of the people. So then they're accountable. They're accountable to the people.
Okay.
So these people, these persons that protest, that turn up in London and say, you're accountable to people, you're meant to serve the people, they are right. but they are not the people. They've relegated themselves to the commoners.
So
That's
look,
the
so
trick.
if I want to build my greenhouse out the back, and I want to do what you did. So for an ordinary punter watching, how much effort, how much time has he got to put in legally to battle this?
It depends on your battle, right? If it's a parking ticket, then you can do it fairly easy with little input. You know, if you're going to build a farm, you best have your argument nailed down, and you best be prepared to face the full force of the crown. So you're going to have to obviously put a lot more. You know, it's an equilibrium thing. For a parking ticket, you can, you know, a few little tricks. For building a farm, you're going to have to knuckle down, and that's why I've made my website to help ordinary punters at least understand some of the tricks that are being used against them on a daily basis.
Yeah, so we're going to put a link to the website underneath. Now, you've helped people. What about that guy who built the castle and he hid it with the straw bales and stuff like that? You helped him, but he still had to knock it down, didn't he? Was there flaws in what he'd done, or was he too far down the road when you were coming in to help him?
Well, that's it. Yeah, I was going around the country at the time helping farmers with their battles against the council and the crown. So I went all over the country, all over Britain doing that. And then this guy, Mr. Fiddler down in Surrey, he heard about what we were doing through a mutual friend. He got us in touch because he had a committal hit. So he got in touch with us when he had a committal hearing from Reigate Council. So for your ordinary people out there that don't understand, a committal hearing is like you're going to prison. So his barristers, everyone abandoned him at that point because it was a case of, look, Rob, we can't take this any further. They want to put you inside. You got to take the castle down. So he got us in to help at the 11th hour, as in like keep me out of prison. And so we did so. Yeah, it was a very high profile planning case at the time.
So is there an argument, if I was going on the other side, is there an argument that in actual fact that the people who are doing the planning are actually just looking out for us all because you might be building some horrendous building that is really disfiguring the whole environment and this, that and the other. So are we treating them unfairly? I don't think so, but are we treating them unfairly?
That's a really good point. And that's the point I like to get across, because to be able to you cannot escape law and governance. Some entity you're going to be governed, whether that's the government of man or government of God. And that's what it boils down to. And on this webpage that I put together for this chat we got here, Liam, I've explained that for your audience. So people say like this is a Christian country, and that just rolls off the tongue, but people don't really give any thought to that. It is a Christian country, which means the Bible is the highest document on law there is. And that's why it features so prominently in the king's coronation.
Do they have a point in actual fact? Is that they're trying to, you might want to be putting pylons up in a beautiful countryside or something like that?
I agree. And I absolutely agree. And they have got a job to do. And I respect that job. They have. Because the only way you can relinquish being a citizen, that puts you back under the Bible, which means, so I'm under a higher law than what the council could ever put on me. Like I stand under the Bible.
Yes, it's more like a morality law in a way, 100%.
Isn't it? Yeah, civil life is secular life, which means it's in opposition to God and it's without morality. That's the definition of secular. What secular means, and man's governance is secular.
Yes.
So
you have an obligation. You have a moral obligation to not kind of abuse your environment and this, that, and the other.
Yeah, the highest law there is in the Bible is love thy neighbor. That's where all law stems from. All law stems from that, love your neighbor, which most people will understand that as cause no harm, injury, or loss. Yes, but it's from the doctrine of love your neighbor. So if I'm under the Bible and I can't tell a lie and I have to love my neighbor, I'm not going to put pylons on or turn a field in Somerset into a multi-story car park.
Yes,
because that ain't going to fly.
So did your family and the people around you, when did they sort of breathe a sigh of relief with regard to this planning thing? Was there a moment they thought, hey, I think we're all right? Or do they still think that after 6 years, and especially now that you have a public profile, that, and I'm not trying to make it difficult for you, that suddenly that you might get a letter tomorrow and saying, Clive, we've seen you on the web, you're giving advice, actually, we're going to go after you again.
I know that's I'm well aware, but I use the law to defend myself. So the council's own constitution binds them. So I use their law, and they've got a duty, and they're accountable to the people. I've explained that I'm now one of the people, which puts me in a higher category. Like I'm bound by a higher set of laws now. Like you said, the moral law under the Bible. So I don't need governing by man's governance.
Did you manage to go around to people and say a sort of, well, told you so? Or did people come up to you and say, actually, that's amazing what you've done?
Well, I've been kept pretty quiet about it, really. Everyone locally knows about me. Obviously, like locally, it's kind of like that's the guy who's built a farm down the lane now with no planning permission. So I suppose on a local level, like a few are sort of well aware of me on a local level. But I decided, Liam, because like some of the things you've highlighted on your channel with some of your guests, things are getting pretty tight in the country now, aren't they? Under Herr Starmer. And our old folk are suffering. He's got all this. Everything that's going on, I feel people need to understand how they're being governed. And that's why there's that apathy out there at the moment you spoke about, because I feel people are lost. They don't really know how they don't know where to turn, what they can do, but they've got more power than they realize.
Yeah, I think people are. I've always found them to be a bit apathetic. There is a certain level of society that don't want to learn. They don't seem to want to engage. They don't want to get the information and stuff. And that I find upsetting. What I find is the sort of 10% are always out there protesting. They always want to try and change something. And I don't know what this is about the British. Is it hereditary? Is it just in our nature? We like queuing? Well, what is it?
I think, well, there's that thing, isn't there? There's a saying out there that says, the British are pretty easy-going until you actually, ruffle the lion. And I feel that is true. But you are right on it. We put up with a heck of a lot, mind you, from our council, from the council tax being, people are going to be priced out their homes in a minute. People are going to need to understand some of what I explained to I think to survive some of what's coming.
So do you pay council tax as well?
It's unlawful to pay council tax. It says in the Bible, like the Pharisees tried to trick Jesus into paying tax.
Yes.
All right. So no, I don't pay council tax because it's unlawful. It says in the Bible not to do it.
So have you had a whole combat with that as well?
I had a bit of a discussion with them about that, and let's just say I don't pay council tax. So read into that what you will.
That the thing again, if you say that you should be paying council tax, you've already sort of entered into the agreement in a way. Is that the sort of thing?
Yeah, council tax is a yearly agreement. That's where there's a couple of months you get off, isn't there? It's been so long since I paid it. I'm having to sort of think about it. But I think there's a couple of months you get off, and then you get the papers back through to that's a yearly contract, just like self-assessment.
Yes,
that's a yearly contract. And an assessment is like a fine that you impose on yourself. Like we do a lot of this to ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Just tell me though, the times when the police turned up, the debt collectors turn up. What happens? Do they have complete access into your house, into your land? Can they go in and do what they want? Can they take stuff out? What happens? And how do you feel when that moment is arrived?
Yeah, so they were trying to issue these enforcement notices, and they were like, Clive, we need to come onto the land to take photographs to see what you're doing. And I was like, you're not coming on the land. That's not happening. So I had a couple of bricklayers down because obviously I'm in the process of building a house and workshops. So I had a couple of my friends down here helping me build. And I was up in the village having a cup of tea with my granddad one day. I left the gate open. And so they had a warrant of entry. They turned up with a police riot van, 2 dog handling units, a locksmith, and about 3 different cars. They blocked up the entire lane. I lived down a country lane.
Yes.
They blocked the whole lane. The builder rang me up and said, Clive, you better get down here. The police are everywhere. So I ran back down the lane and they were there taking the photographs. And so it's
physically they can walk in and do what they want. But I mean, they weren't like sort of saying we're going to take that tractor and we're going to run off.
No,
with it.
Not at that stage. Not that can come if it gets to court and they issue with a fine. You don't pay the fine. They can sell the land to cash in to get their money back. Yeah, that's when it gets real serious. But because I understood some of their tricks early on and some of the things we've spoken about, I got to a point where they didn't even want to take me to court.
Well, that's brilliant. We like a hero, Clive, because there are so few people around who really stand up, and make a stand. So I think it's absolutely fantastic. So do you go round and talk to people? You help people? Do you charge for that, or what's your thing?
Well, first, I don't regard myself as a hero in the slightest bit, Liam. Really, I was in a tight corner and I had to come out swinging.
Right.
Otherwise, I lost everything. So I don't regard myself as a hero. So, but what I've done, I've set up a website with a lot of the things that I've written articles on my website. They will help, like I said, will help
Mhm.
scaffolders, bricklayers, labourers. These are the type of people, the ordinary working class guy, like as am I.
Yes.
These are the type of people I need to get through because we're not taught this stuff.
No. No.
And
So Clive, we've just got a couple of minutes left. So I want to make sure that we know where people can go to access this information. So where do they go to contact you or to get help or just to read the articles?
Yeah, the articles are at capillarywave.com, and from there you can find me on Facebook and Twitter and things. And like I say, those articles I've written on the public side of Capillary Wave, a lot of that information can help anyone start to do what I did if they choose to
That's
do so.
amazing, and you're helping farmers at the moment and things like that, which is fantastic. And is your business now going all right? So you've survived the storm?
Yeah. No, at that time in 2007, I decided to just change things up. So I parked the business, the construction business,
Yes.
and I went. I'm entrepreneurial. I've got a few irons and a few fires. So I concentrating on some other things I had going on. Yeah, so I left that. I've not gone back into that since.
Yeah, and will you go out and do public speaking and stuff like that to advise people and do
Yeah,
seminars maybe?
yeah. There's a few events I'm attending this year around the country. I've been asked to come and speak at. So yeah, where basically I'll be imparting some of this information, some of the things we've spoken about today about how people can start to learn about how they're being governed, because you cannot take on the crown from a position of being a citizen of the United Kingdom. Forget it. That's the worst possible position you can be in.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll get Clive folks back on. Fascinating man. We've zoomed through the time. It'll click off any moment now. So I really want to thank you, Clive, for coming on. And you are an example to people that you can stand up. You can stand up and you can win in the end, which is so rare. So congratulations, Clive, and thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Liam. Thanks for having me on.